It is Homecoming Sunday here at First United Methodist Church of Schenectady. My name is Sarah Barron. I have the joy of being the pastor here, and I do want to draw your attention to a few announcements. Hopefully you have heard that there's an opportunity for a light lunch and all-church meeting after worship today. And in particular, we're going to be having a conversation about some of the steps out front and what we want to do in the process of replacing them. Are we putting out new steps? Are we wanting to have a ramp to make it more handicapped accessible? If so, which option do we really like? There's a signboard in the back there that shows you visually what's happening. Here's the key. I don't know how we're actually going to practically do this, but Elaine says we're actually going to start out front to stand in front of the church and see the current problem. So after we finish worship, I guess I'll go crazy and greet you in the back to encourage you to go there and see things. And then once we see stuff, we'll come back in and we'll have a chance to eat and have conversation. So now you know why I'm in a different position than usual. And if you are unable to stay, we hope you'll at least glance at the photographs. There are two very, very different potential solutions. And you might have very, very different feelings about them. Or you may not. I don't know. As is common, because it is Homecoming Sunday, we have a choir. And that is a wonderful thing for all of us. If you are someone who has thought about wanting to sing with the choir and hasn't made a decision yet, you could chat with Debbie and she'll convince you. If you have thought that you would love to play bells but are still a little bit unsure about that, you can chat with Stephanie and she may convince you, but she'll take you seriously either. We are coming very quickly towards October, which the weather this morning made it very clear. The first Sunday of October is always World Communion Sunday, when many churches around the world celebrate communion on the same Sunday, and we think about our connections around the world. After World Communion, we're going to be having a soup, bread, and conversation. We hope that you will be able to join us for that. Those are really wonderful times that we have to be together. And I try not to draw your attention to all of the announcements, but I try to draw your attention to some of them irregularly so you don't totally miss it. And I just have to say, I looked at the library one this morning and thought, look at that. We are invited to stop by the library and notice that there's a new children's book entitled The Meaning of Pride. And it's on the desk in the center, and any one of us who wants to look at that wonderful book, it is right there for us. And thanks be to God for Linda Greenwood and her work with our library. She is a godsend, and we are so lucky. So there are many other books. I do want to say I've been in a lot of church libraries over the years because my life is really special. And most of them have a lot of books that you wouldn't want to read. And I don't remember when we did it, but some number of years ago, all of those of us who have seminary degrees, which is a shockingly high number around here, we got together and we went through the library and we got rid of every book that we thought would benefit no one. And so now I can tell you that if you go into our library, there's really a fabulous collection of books. The primary issue is you go into the library and you want to read all of them, which then can induce guilt, and I have no recommendations to make on that because that's my life. But we have a great library, and you are welcome to check out books. Okay, I am actually going to stop there and trust you to read the rest. It is lovely to have you here this morning. I invite you to enter with me into the spirit of worship as we breathe together. You gather us home, bless our home, and we receive the gift that is the praise.
candle reading for the Peace, Hope, and Justice this morning is written by Reverend Scott Foster, pastor of Fairmount United Methodist Church in Raleigh, North Carolina. Jesus is often called the great physician, as he healed countless people throughout the Gospels, including the blind, the deaf, the lame, and the sick, awakening the faith of others who witnessed his compassion. Physicians have been inspired by Jesus' healing ministry and have labored to be a part of it. Scientific researchers have participated in Jesus' healing ministry by dedicating their lives to alleviating suffering and disease through their work in labs and classrooms, regularly lengthening the quality of life for billions of people through rigorous research, experimentation, and study. In the United States, government agencies like the National Institutes of Health and the Center for Disease Control have arisen out of this movement, becoming the crown jewel of our scientific community. Today, we light the candle for peace. These organizations who are seeing their work end or face harsh budget cuts, for doctors and nurses who are still dedicating their lives to heal others and follow scientific truth, for researchers who have lost their jobs due to the defunding of research at universities throughout the country, and for children, teenagers, and adults who are no longer eligible to receive a COVID-19 vaccine. We light this candle in hope that our healthcare system will continue to follow the wisdom of trained scientists and researchers, and that medical professionals will continue to faithfully fulfill their call, despite limitations placed upon them. We light this candle in peace that understands how Jesus' healing ministry will carry on in and through the church all over the world. And we light this candle in belief that justice will come, that enables all people to have access to physical and mental health care needed to live whole lives. Please stand for the call to worship. The light shines in the darkness, unshaken, knowing that the darkness has never overcome them. Let us recommit ourselves to walking in God's ways of justice. Empower us, boldly use the freedom and power given to us to resist evil, injustice, and oppression in whatever forms they present us. Let us pass the peace.
Morning. That child is the age of our house, which is a very nice measure of time. Yeah. It's a beautiful one. All right. All right, well, let's. Dan, I got lost greeting you all. I'll start the prayer. She'll take over as we go. It's perfect. Oh, you made it in time. Never mind. Isn't it the best place to get lost in greeting the beloveds of God?
Yikes. Let us join together in the unison prayer. You who are our home, life can be so disorienting. Sometimes we know neither where we are nor where we are going. We feel like we are wandering in the wilderness, and yet you are always with us, and you always welcome us home. Guide us, beloved, to treat each other with the love you have for all of us, so we too may be home to each other, and we may all have a place to be safe and find rest. Amen.
We, in fact, do not have any 50-year members this year. We do have 55, 60, 65, and 70-year members, though. So we'll take that. I just want to share those names with you. Some in this place will remember them with fondness and gratitude, and some will know that there are saints that came ahead of you, and all of that is good. So in 55 years of membership, Susan Penny. In 60 years of membership, David Brown and Gail Collins. That's fine. In 65 years of membership, Ellen Potoff Ronald Revest and David Rockwell. And in 70 years of membership, Charles Elston. I will say one more person got to 65 years. That was Mary Dane Reynolds. But when we sent her a letter saying, hey, if you want to come to homecoming, we'll celebrate you, she sent a letter back, and I love this to the deepest core of my being, and said, it's probably time for me to admit that I live in Maine. I noted that this church has a pull on people sometimes, and they have not, in fact, lived here in many, many decades, and yet it is still their church home. And that is a wonderful thing, but at least in theory, and if the Greenwoods could cover their ears, in theory, you are supposed to find a faith community where you are. We don't actually want you to do that. We don't want anybody to do it, but it's the right thing. It's what's supposed to happen. So I have such gratitude for those who have gone before us. I look at this building. I think about the care that the building has received. I mostly think about the care that has been able to be given because of this church and the building. That because we gather together and we ground one another in God's love, we are able to do so much in the world. And it's awe-inspiring. So I would invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer as we celebrate both those who have led us in this journey with this church and the experience we have of this being our shared. Will you pray with me? Holy God, we stand on the shoulders of giants in this community. Those who have been members for a long time, remember those who came before them. And inspiration is passed on one person at a time. In a world that feels like shifting sand, this floating church is one of the places we find steadiness. We welcome each other home. We are reminded that you call us home. We are reminded that we together are able to do your work in the world, and we are grateful. Holy and loving God, we thank you for this faith community and the impact it has had on our lives. And because of the impact it has had on our lives, the impact we have been able to have in this community and sometimes even this world. Amen. We're still in this time of prayer, and so we come to the time to share our cares and celebrations with one another. I have some already written down, and then you're going to have a chance to share even more if you want. The first thing written down this morning was, we didn't vote for this, stand up, speak out. Truth on that one. This morning, we had the honor of serving breakfast to 109 of God's beloveds. Due to the hard work of our breakfast cook and the generosity of this church and the 10 volunteers who showed up and offered their support. I am aware of multiple people who are not here this morning in particular because they are sick. And so my intention is with those who are sick or in other ways unable to be here. If some of you are watching, we love you. And I am so grateful for the chance to gather together to share our home with one another. So I wrote that down. But now you get to share what you want. What would you bring to everyone's attention? We're gonna wait. I'm gonna have you wait, Lisa. We're gonna use the microphone. So after Marianne, you're welcome to go next. But no, you're fine. This is a change because we're live streaming. Unless you speak into the microphone, the people online can't hear you. You didn't know. It's okay. But Marianne, please share.
I am so grateful we live in New York State. We got our COVID shots on Thursday. Natalie said, hug me softly because she had gotten hers. and her arm is still sore. But it breaks my heart for the people who cannot get a COVID shot or pay for them. And what are they, like $200 or something? It's ridiculous. And I'm grateful for this church. To come in and get a hug from Louis is worth so much, wherever he's hiding.
Usually in the kitchen during worship.
Yeah.
Lisa, we're ready now.
Hello there, everybody. My name is Lisa. I joined this church in 2012. I haven't been to services for a while, but I feel so blessed that I came back and saw all my friends. Got to remind everybody who I am. I'm Lisa, and I'm very happy to be here amongst everybody else. And God bless you all, and God bless Charlie Kirk.
Thank you so much. We're so glad to have you with us again, David.
Yeah, a prayer for Kevin Cooper, who is my best friend in Lake Champlain in Essex County. He has pancreatic cancer. I'm sure the oncologists are doing everything they can, but the chances are not good. So pray for Kevin Cooper. Thank you.
Bill, thank you for raising up Kevin, and I think we'll be praying for you too, because it's a serious thing to have your friend in that situation. You can just use this one.
Speaking of COVID, my grandfather has COVID right now, so prayers for him, please. And God bless Melissa Hortman.
I have a joy to celebrate. I just got word from my sister that her daughter's baby has been safely born. Number 3 sons in one family. And I can't pronounce his first name, but his middle name is Thomas.
I have been so grateful. Isaiah is in kindergarten, and he has these wonderful classmates, and I'm a camp person, so I've been obsessing over learning all of their names, and there have been multiple names that I've had to Google how to pronounce, and I am grateful for the chance to learn. Bob had one, yep. Just to keep you hopping. That's right.
I pray that we honor yet the consistency of the Constitution, the way this country is put together. But I pray that we honor also the ability to find other avenues to express the truths behind them. Because as some are shut down, others will be opened. And the Spirit is leading us to both.
I will say that I forgot an announcement, and this is not the time to do announcements, so I'm not going to do it, but watch me work around it. I am so grateful to Natalie Tice for a very long list of reasons, but the one I'm aware of today is that she is willing to take the message of this church's love for all people and God's love for all people to some suicide prevention activities this coming weekend, next weekend. And she asked me to write a letter telling people that I believe that God loves them. If you want to know favorite tasks I have, writing letters to tell people that God loves them, very high on my list. And I am grateful to Natalie. I'm grateful for the request she has made. I'm grateful for the wisdom of those who live in that community for helping me perfect my language. And I'm grateful, watch this one, for Natalie being willing to share that experience with any of you who want to chat with her about it. And that's how you make an announcement into a prayer. Let's take this time to share with God as we unite our hearts and minds in prayer. Loving God, you who are our home. We thank you for the opportunity we have to share our home, including with our breakfast guests, that this can be a place where people experience grace and mercy in tangible ways. We thank you for this church and the experiences that we have in being welcomed and loved. We thank you for the blessings that come because we are in New York State, even as we bring our awareness to the struggles of those who live in places where important and life-giving care is not available. We thank you for all of those scientists who have figured things out for all of us. And we thank you for the absolute wonder that is a COVID shot, the wonder that is a flu shot. We are amazed at what is able to be done for our health. We thank you for Elaine's great nephew being born safely and for that family getting to adjust to being a family of five. We thank you for our Constitution and those who work to make it clear that it is a gift to our society. We thank you for those willing to speak love to all people impacted by suicide and suicidal ideation. And Holy God, we bring you heavy hearts for the ways it feels like our society is disintegrating, for those who are sick or unable to be here, for Kevin and those who have cancer, for Natalie's grandfather and those who have COVID, for all of those who are struggling because of suicide. We ask for your guidance that we might notice the good and the wonders around us, beauty of the space, the amazingness of being with a choir, the inspiration of people like Melissa, and that we might be honest about our struggles, because it is very hard to face it. And without facing it, we're unable to acknowledge the dreams that you have for things to be. And so we offer all of this, the silence of our heart, and the words that have been spoken to you, trusting that you are listening and caring and responding. And for us, that trust is formed in part through Jesus, who invited us to pray together, saying, Our Creator, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom,
This reading is from the book of Amos. Not sure, but I think Amos might be my favorite prophet. This reading refers to an ephah and a shekel. An ephah was a weight equivalent to a bushel of grain. A shekel was a weight or a coin equivalent to around 30 cents. Hear this, you that trample on the needy and bring to ruin the poor of the land, saying, When will the new moon be over, so that we may sell grain, and the Sabbath, so that we may offer wheat for sale? We will make the ephah small and the shekel great, and practice deceit with false balances, buying the poor for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals, and selling the sweepings of the wheat. The Lord has sworn by the pride of Jacob, surely I will never forget any of their deeds.
I invite the young people to come forward and be in conversation with me. There's a lot of joy in the children playing with each other. That's good too. I'm getting a hard no from at least one child. Hi, Adeline. I'm so glad you made it. Well, hi, Asher. How's it going? Hi, Nola. What a beautiful butter. Would you want to show me what you're carrying, Asher? A big bird and a snake. How fabulous. Thank you for showing me. I love that enthusiasm. Me too. We are on the same wavelength, friend. All right, Nora, I got a question for you. It's a hard question. I don't actually expect you to know the answer, but you can take a guess even if you don't know. Maybe? Don't know. I didn't ask yet, love. All right, the hard question is, who owns the church? You don't know. Asher, do you know who owns the church? Dum-dum. Elaine, who owns the church? The people, the members of the church, technically. I have been thinking about that because we never talk about owning the church, right? We think of things in many ways, but if we are being technical, the members of the church own the church, although super technical. None of you care about this, but they may. We hold the property in trust on behalf of the annual conference. Aren't you excited about my technicalities? And I was thinking about this because if this church is our home, it is quite literally ours. It is something that is ours together. And that is the joy of thinking about who owns the church, because I don't The clergy are excluded from this, right? Dana doesn't own it, Bob doesn't own it, I don't own it. We are no part of this. But you, the laity, this is yours. And the trustees, thanks be to God, the trustees do the work of caring for this facility on our shared behalf. This is part of why we're going to have a conversation later about what we're doing with part of the property, because it is ours together, and your trustees are wise enough to know they should never act without your input. But when we have this wonderful facility and it is ours together, isn't it super cool that we get to welcome other people into? And that we know that God welcomes everybody in? Yeah, that's my whole thing. How'd I do? Notably not my child, gives me way better feedback. Or more positive, I suppose. Would you be okay holding my hand for prayer? God, we thank you for those who came before us and gifted us so many resources we are able to use to welcome each other home and share your love in the world. Forward. You all made this extra lovely. Oh, Asher, I still have your toys. I should probably not take those, right? Fire, I'm going to get out of your way.
Hear this reading from the book of Luke. Then Jesus said to the disciples, "There was a rich man who had a manager And charges were brought to him that this man was squandering his property. So he summoned him and said to him, "What is this that I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer." Then the manager said to himself, "What will I do now that my master is taking the position away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I have decided what to do so that when I am dismissed as a manager, people may welcome me into their homes." So, summoning his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, "How much do you owe my master?" He answered, 100 jugs of olive oil. He said to him, "Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 50. Then he asked another, "And how much do you owe?" He replied, 100 containers of wheat. He said to him, "Take your bill and make it 80. And his master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly, for the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of dishonest wealth, so that when it is gone, they may welcome you into the eternal homes. Whoever is faithful in a very little is faithful also in much, and whoever is dishonest in a very little is dishonest also in much. If then you have not been faithful with the dishonest wealth, who will entrust you to the true riches? And if you have not been faithful with what belongs to another, who will give you what is your own? No slave can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth."
It's homecoming Sunday. I am always grateful for the slower pace of summer. And then also excited to watch the energy rise back up in the fall. On homecoming, remember that God is our home and this church is too. And because this is First Schenectady United Methodist Church, there's an expectation that I preach a good, justice-y sermon. Apparently on the parable of the dishonest steward. My go-to commentaries had some useful notes on this parable. Really, they did. The Jesus seminar colors the passage red, although only verses 1 through 8b or 8a. So it ends with the bit about and the landowner commended the steward for honesty. The rest of it, they do not think was back to Jesus. Okay, so they say the story does not moralize, unlike so much edifying teaching in both Hellenistic Judean religion and early Christianity, and that exceptional quality became a large factor in the decision to attribute the parable to Jesus. The Jewish annotated New Testament points out that some commentators, but not the parable, suggest that the manager was removing the interest charges. The social science commentary on the Synoptic Gospels, let's note that's usually my go-to, makes it clear that the amount the manager releases from the contracts is not his fee, because he wouldn't have charged that much, and he wouldn't have written his fee into the contract. It also says that the scheme that the dishonest manager does is one that places the landowner in a particular bind, because if he retracts the actions of the manager, he risks serious alienation in the village, where the villagers would have been celebrating this astounding generosity. But if he allows the reductions to stand, he'll be praised far and wide, as will the manager, for having made an arrangement as a noble and generous man, and it is that reaction that the manager counts on. And so, having read all of that, I was left with the curious problem of what on earth to do with this parable. Particularly given the fact that it is said not to actually have a moral theme. So that left me with the question, why did Jesus tell this story? And why did Luke tell us that Jesus told this story? And having looked at my commentaries, I was stumped. Generally, when most people preach on this passage, they decide if they're going to celebrate or condemn the steward or the manager. If you want to celebrate it, that's cool, but it's a little tricky because the manager is very clearly acting in a self-serving way. Or you could condemn the manager, but I couldn't figure out how to do that without celebrating the systems that enrich the rich and impoverish the poor. And while I am fine with sometimes hearing a parable as a description of the world as it is, or a description of the kingdom as it can be either. This is neither. I really wanted an understanding of the passage that would fit with God's passion for justice as expressed in Amos. So, what does one do when the first 8 books that one looks at are not helpful? Different people have different answers. My answer is I find a 9. That's true. And that was a great thing. It turns out I forgot how much I liked that 9th book. The one that was actually helpful on this parable is Reverend Dr. William Herzog's Parables as Subversive Speech. Herzog accepts the wisdom that I already offered, and then he finds a way to actually do something with it to make sense of why this is a story worth listening to. And I need you to know he's brilliant, but he's dense. So know that I am glossing over most of his wisdom and trying to make something that anyone would want to listen to. Herzog points out that the dishonest manager is condemned by rumor. We don't know if what was said about him was true. Landowners were wealthy elites who derived their wealth from the land they owned and the labor of the peasants working on it. But usually they didn't live on the land. They lived in cities where they could spend their wealth and engage. So they entrusted the land and the work of squeezing all the possible wealth of it to their managers. The landowners wanted to gain lots and lots of wealth. And if they got less than what they wanted, they would blame their managers. So landowners distrusting their managers was pretty normal. And since they weren't around, they were often reliant on rumors to tell them what was happening. And the text actually says, charges were brought that he was squandering the property of the landowner. So first point, that's normal. But contextually, it's really important to notice that this is a story told by a Jewish man to his Jewish followers. These are people who knew Amos, and they knew other prophets. They had heard the words that Danner read today. Hear this, you who trample the needy, and bring to ruin the poor of the land. Hear this, you who say, when will the new moon be over so that we can sell grain? When will the Sabbath be over so we can sell our wheat? We will make the ephah smaller and the shekel heavier and practice deceit with false balances, buying the poor for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals, and selling the sweepings of the wheat. These were people who did not trust the landowner. They believed that the landowner was taking their wealth from them. They were right. They also did not trust the manager. And it's important to remember that the Hebrew Bible condemns the charging of interest within the community of faith. If the landowner was also Jewish, he would have been prohibited from charging interest on debt, which was a well understood and firm rule. So there were common workarounds, because that's how humans work, right? Mostly, it happened that the contracts around debt were written in such a way that the repayment amount required simply took into effect the principal and the interest. But they weren't delineated. And the manager would be responsible for writing down the contracts, leaving the owner with plausible deniability. So the manager is doing the landowner's dirty work. And the peasants weren't going to trust him at all. He is an active participant in oppression, even though he does have less power than the landowner. Dr. Herzog reads this parable in terms of weapons of the weak and people using the tools they have available to take down the powerful. And he says, because they are virtually powerless, peasants must find ways of resisting their oppressors that do not subject them to the jeopardy of open revolt. So basically, he thinks the peasants started the rumors to try to take down the manager. He also points out, and I think this is really key, there is no monolithic moral system to which everyone consents and everyone is judged. The entire system of which the steward is a part is exploitative and predatory. The steward represents the interest of a greedy and oppressive elite. The peasants are struggling to hold on to every bit of sustenance they can get. The moral economy of the peasants views the master as exploitative and ruthless. The master's code treats the peasants as resources to be squeezed to get a profit. The steward's code is to survive while making a profit large enough to secure a lucrative and honest graft, and small enough to avoid attracting the master's attention, and reasonable enough to gain the peasant's consent. And I'm really interested in this idea. There is no monolithic moral system to which everyone consents and by which everyone is judged, and the ways that applies today too, right? There's different moral codes being lived out in our society. When the debt is released, the peasants have, by accepting that, they have indebted themselves to him, and they're going to be obligated to repay a favor later. The master is still going to make money because interest is, of course, only part of his profits. And those debts that have been forgiven have now become a favor that is owed to the master and the steward. And the steward has effectively cornered the master by easing the lives of the peasants, at least for the present. By lowering the amount of the debts by exactly the amount of hidden interest, the steward reminds the master of just who has been taking chances to accumulate his wealth, including the questionable practice of charging de facto interest in spite of prohibitions in the written Torah and the oral Torah, which is presumably why he's praised for his shrewdness. And Herzog even thinks kept on by the landowner, because he's cornered the landowner so well. In this story, despite having all the power and wealth, the master is outsmarted. Best guess for today, I think that's the primary reason the story is told. Because in the time of Jesus, much like today, it was far too easy to just give up and assume that the powers of the day were immovable. The rich landowner was untouchable, right? He had more power and wealth than all the peasants combined. His greed endangered their lives. This was reality as they knew it. Everyone knew it. The rich and the powerful seeking ever more power and ever more wealth was the way of the world and the empire, and it shortened their lives. It shortened the lives of most of the people in the empire. So to tell a story where the master landowner is diminished, cornered, and outsmarted helped because it humanized him. It reminded the people who heard the story that the landowner's power was limited and that he could be cornered and he could be taken down a notch, that the things as they were was not the way that they had to be. The nearly invulnerable turns out to be vulnerable. And so, in a way that I did not expect when I started out with this text, it is in some ways another way of telling the resurrection story. In resurrection, the empire uses its final and ultimate tool, the power of life and death, to try to stop the work of God in the world. And it fails because you can't stop the work of God in the world. Here again, the powers of the world just turn out not to be all that. Instead, the prophets calling out, "Hear this," and calling for justice for the peasants turns out to be louder and more powerful. The real power, the actually unbreakable power, is in love and relationship. Real power is shared. And that's the power that's actually unbreakable. And so in the end, I think this parable told its first hearers that there was hope. And then Luke shared it. including to his wealthy listeners. And maybe he told it to tell them that the powers that ruled their lives weren't as impenetrable as they thought either. Which leads me to wonder how many of them were able to hear that as good news. But it is good news. Systems that require oppression benefit no one. Sometimes the oppressors miss that. Systems that take the abundance of God's resources and share them, those are the systems that benefit everyone. Those who have power, especially those who have power and use it to amass wealth, consolidate power, and vanquish their perceived enemies, are vulnerable. The power to oppress can be broken. Life doesn't have to be like this. God isn't for having things be like this. It isn't time to give up hope. Thus says the parable. Think it's a parable. This is my best work. Parables are slippery. So thanks be to God for the chance to struggle with this story until some meaning emerged. Amen. We are blessed in our lives. We have gifts of connection. Some of us are able to share of what we have. And so as we move into the time of offering, we have the opportunity to reflect on what we have been given and to think about the ways that we choose to give back. God of love, God who cares about all. As we offer our gifts to you, we ask for your blessings on them, that the gifts that we give might be useful for the building of your kingdom and the sharing of your love. Amen. I admit that I picked that hymn because I think of it as ours. Like that is the crux. And you as a church have raised many people for many generations in that vein of thought. And I have just been lucky that I wasn't raised by you, but I was raised in it too. My mother tells a story of in her doctoral work in biology, she got to dissect a bear. And that for her, it was one of the holiest experiences of her life because there was so much wonder in the midst of it. That is, thanks be to God, another expression of the people we are, people who are able to blend faith and learning. And oh, is it good to be in a community where both are saved. Beloveds of God, there is hope. God is not done with us. Thanks be to God.